Well, good afternoon to everyone around the world. It's a real privilege to have you with us this afternoon, this morning, this evening. As you know, this is a part of an international webinar series conference led by Women for Water Partnership in conjunction with its partners, NetWwater, and Soroptimist International of the Southwest Pacific, with support of the Stockholm Environmental Institute. And you've seen the program. We have an excellent presenter in the person of Mina Das. I will introduce her shortly. And then we will have an expert discussion of the presentation with Anjal Prakash, that will provide his insights of the presentation. We will give everybody, of course, an opportunity to really ask questions and that you are concerned with, or what you would like to have more information on. And then we'll have a young water professional, Ilihana Harrington from Imperial College, that will give us some insight and some closing remarks. So it is really a great opportunity for us in this series of 8 webinars, with today's one, Rural Bengal Women Coping with Climate Change. And of course, the Nishtha is a community-based women organization and has been organizing different forms of programs for the empowerment of girls and women in the marginalised strata of the community since 1974. So really a long time. And the operational area of the organization encompasses around 300 of the remotest villages under 6 community development blocks of South 24 Parganas district in the state of West Bengal, India. And of course, besides ensuring education of the girl children, Nishtha has also organized numerous programs involving, especially with the active involvement of rural adolescent girls and women for the socio-economic development of the agrarian community. So the program that you have seen, Mina Das will present the case study, and that will be followed by the expert discussion, and then we will have some question and answer session. And there will also be a film that will be showcased, and then we will have some highlights that we would like to lift out, and then we will listen towards the end to Eliana. So, and then we'll close off. So it is approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. And we really appreciate that you have joined us on this Women for Water Partnership and the webinar series that we are presenting. Myself, I'm the chair of the WASAG, the Global Framework on Water Scarcity in Agriculture, and I will be moderating this afternoon. So once again, welcome to every one of you. So without any ado, I would like to introduce to you Mina Das. She's a real I would say woman of many talents, and she's fighting for equal rights and equal opportunity for women, and that has been her mission. She's director of Nishtha, an NGO in Kolkata, and Mina has been actively involved in girls and women's empowerment issues since the 1970s, mainly by involving girls and women in decision-making processes for the well-being of themselves, their families, and their communities. Much of the work has been concerned with the educating girls up to their PG degree level, and after some have undergone skills development training, many have become entrepreneurs, taking on leadership roles and becoming change makers in their communities. Others have gained independence, often actively solving problems affecting their status and livelihood, as well as should they face violence. In her case, as director of Nishtha, Mina has gained recognition from the Government Administration of India and has received several national and international awards for her work. The organization has also received recognition for a women's group plan that was conceived to resolve a water crisis in the community. Mina, the floor is yours, and we are looking forward to what you are going to present to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Felix Vienders, for wonderful introduction. I don't know about this type of things about me also. Thank you very much. And should I? Namaskar. I am Meena Das from Nishtha. Now you all came to know about the mission of our organization, which we are implementing in West Bengal, India. We are really grateful to you all, especially Kusum Akka, for creating this golden opportunity for the rural women like me, so that I can share about my wonderful experience of working under these leaders. These women are considered as illiterate, ignorant, but to us, they are the heroes, real heroes, leaders, change makers, and brave warriors. They themselves are also the victims of violence, but they are committed to work for their fellow sisters. They speak up against violence, taking actions to protect their environment. They have board in a social network, and they facilitate the rural opinion and attitude. But I want to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to our Guru, our Master, Dr. Odun Dev, and Mrs. Dhriti Dev. Without their unconditional and boundless love, nothing can be happening. Now, I want to show you a short film so that you can easily understand the struggle and achievement of them. Really, it is all a successful case study. Please watch the small video, please. Video, please.
We live in a land surrounded by water. No, we are not taking a geography class. We want to tell you the story of what we did in our village. Our village is called Jugdia. It's in the South 24 Parganas district of West Bengal. Our land is like a large basin, and there is no escape route. so water stagnates during rains. It stays there till the end of winter or the beginning of summer. So we live on a single crop of winter paddy and a host of winter vegetables. In case of a sudden spell of winter shower, this crop also gets inundated. Climate change causes such disasters pretty often nowadays. As a result, we and our children faced the brunt of poverty and hunger. And our men heaved long and heavy sighs and did nothing. They tossed in their beds and spent sleepless nights. Dejection turns into anger. In order to release their tension, they beat us. If you hit a tree, your hand will get bruised. But if you beat us, there is hardly any chance of retaliation. They consider us to be brainless machines. Once installed, we have to work for them day in and day out, bear children for them, even procure food for them when they fail to do it. But we happen to be the most neglected. The cow provides us milk and dung and urine and meat, hide and bones, but the cow is never allowed to have a say about whether her milk should be used for human consumption or for her calf, whether she should be sold out now or she should stay back in the family. Women like us are no better than a cow. Our men can never conceive of consulting us to solve their problems. But we knew we had to come together to find a way out. Discussions continued near water taps on the steps of the local pond, while walking back home within the hamlet, and finally in community meetings. These discussions resulted in working out a plan.
যদি আকাশে বৃষ্টি না হয় তাহলে বর্ষার ধান গেল, আর যদি আমরা খালের জল না পাই খোড়ো ধান আমরা চাষ করতে পারবো। খালটা না কাটালে আমরা জলটা পাবো কোথা থেকে?
We lent our hands to prepare a model.
আমাদের জলবায়ুর আবহাওয়ার যে পরিবর্তনটা, মানে যখন আমাদের বৃষ্টির প্রয়োজন হয় তখন আমরা বৃষ্টিটা পাই না, কিন্তু যখন আমাদের বৃষ্টির প্রয়োজন হয় না তখনই অসময়ে বৃষ্টিটা চলে আসে। ধরুন চাষের জন্য যে পরিমাণ জলের প্রয়োজন সেটা আমরা কিন্তু এই যে খালটা রয়েছে,
A channel must be excavated and connected with the existing canal to let the stagnated water out.
আমার নাম আরাস সর্দার, গ্রামের সবাই আমাকে মাস্টারমশাই বলে চেনেন।
This man acts as a liaison between the villagers and the panchayat. We call him master.
আমাদের মহিলারা একটা মডেল তৈরি করে, সেই মডেল অনুসারে আমার কাছে এসে আমি সেই মডেলটা অনুসরণ করে নিয়ে গিয়ে পঞ্চায়েতে যাই।
Now master led all of us to the panchayat, women in front and men following them.
তার মধ্যে ওই খাল যদি একটা কাটানো যায় তাহলে আমাদের জমিগুলো যেগুলো ডুবে গেছে সেই জমিগুলো তাহলে জল লেবে গেলে জমি আমাদের শূন্য হলে জমিও বাঁচবে, আমরাও বাঁচবো।
We explained the plan to the panchayat.
মধ্যে দিয়ে গেছে। এর থেকে একটি ছোট খাল যেটা যুগদিয়া গ্রামের ভিতরে ঢুকেছে, এই যে খালটি এই বাড়ি হওয়া বা ময়লা পড়ে আবর্জনা পড়ে খালটি বন্ধ হয়ে গেল, যার ফলে চাষটা একেবারেই হয় না। আর এই দিকে যেহেতু কোনো খাল নেই এই সংলগ্ন এলাকার মধ্যে, তাই এখানে বৃষ্টি হলেও সমস্যা না হলেও সমস্যা, তার জন্য কিন্তু এই খালটা সংস্কার করা ভীষণভাবে প্রয়োজন। আরও একটি বিষয় যেটা হচ্ছে, খাল যদি সংস্কার হয় তাহলে কিন্তু জলের পরিমাণটাও বাড়বে। এমনিতেই অতিবৃষ্টি হলে কিন্তু জমিতে জল জমে যায়, তার জন্যে এখান থেকে একটি নতুন খাল কাটাবার পরিকল্পনাও করা হয়েছে, যেটি এই ধোসা খালের কাছ থেকে জলটা বেরিয়ে ধোসা খাল হয়ে জলটা বেরিয়ে যাবে। আবার যখন জলের প্রয়োজন হবে, যখন বৃষ্টি অল্প হবে, তখন এই খালে যদি জল থাকে তাহলে এই খাল সংলগ্ন যে জমিগুলো থাকবে সেখানে ভালোভাবে চাষ হবে, এবং এটা সংস্কার করালে তো এই জমিগুলো ভালোভাবেই চাষ হবে।
Panchayat eagerly listened to it and readily agreed to our proposal.
জিনিসটা চিন্তা করছেন যে এই এলাকার চাষি 150 টাকা ঘন্টা জলসেচ ব্যবস্থায় থেকে 30 টাকা ঘন্টায় যদি জলসেচ করতে পারি, তাহলে 1 বিঘে চাষ করলে আমরা 2000 টাকা শুধু জলসেচের থেকে বাঁচবে, এবং অনায়াসে আমরা জলসেচ ব্যবস্থা চালু করতে পারবো এবং চাষের সুফলটা আমরা পাবো। সেই জন্যে আমরা পঞ্চায়েতের তরফ থেকে বলছি, পাশে আমার প্রধান সাহেব বসে আছে, তো আমরা চাইব, আমাদের পঞ্চায়েতের মেম্বারদের সঙ্গে এক দফা আলোচনা হয়ে আছে, চাষিদের নিয়ে, সদস্যদের নিয়ে একটা সার্বিক আলোচনা, একটা সুষ্ঠু ফল আমরা যাতে পেতে পারি, সেই জন্যে সেই আলোচনা আমরা করার ব্যবস্থা করছি।
The voices of women, so long unheard of and neglected, now reach the corridors of power. The higher officials of the state administration and the police sat with Nishtha in a meeting to explore the possibility of realizing the plan made by the women. The ball has just started rolling. The movement is sure to reach its coveted end because women and only women can solve the problem of water. Extend your hand. They need your solidarity to strengthen their movement.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. We can reach moon. We can reach moon, but we need food. Food is produced by the cultivators, and women has huge contribution in this cultivation. According to Oxfam, around 80% of farm work is undertaken by women for their livelihood. But our experience is saying that more than 90% women are engaged in agriculture. During the disastrous lockdown phase, only agriculture saved us, saved India. World Bank had strongly recommended for investing double amount of agriculture for strengthening the economy of India. So, agriculture is the lifeline, and without women contribution, you cannot expect any agricultural product. Please, next slide, please. And next. Women has huge contribution in rural economy, maybe in agriculture, animal rearing, fisheries, so many things. Next slide. But ironically, due to the agrarian custom, even 1% women does not have ownership of their land, and they don't have any decision-making power at all stages of the development processes. For this reason, Nishtha's prime motto is to ensure that women and men have equal access and control over the resources. Next slide, please. In any adverse situation, the men become easily despaired, and girls and women become the soft target of their frustration and anger. They also torture the girls and women are becoming drunk with the money from selling out the ration provided by the government and NGOs like Nishtha. This way, men try to come out from their frustration and anger. But at the same time, women are struggling hard to shape their children, their family, their community, and their nature. Next slide, please. Now, I want to share one case study. You have seen also in the short film. In Jugdia village, under Mokrahat 2 3D plot, there is a big plot of land. More than 400 farmers cultivate in this plot. Long time back, farmers used to raise 4 crops in a year in this land. For the last few years, entire plots get waterlogged in monsoon and experience acute water scarcity during the summer. And due to this, they cannot cultivate during the summer. Gradually, most of the male farmers have switched over to avenues of learning other than agriculture. But women didn't agree with their men, as they have confidence that we would overcome this problem. Next slide, please. Next slide. And the women group, the women group members of the area discussed on this issue again and again, and came out with a well-knit plan to overcome this hindrance. Not only that, they also prepared a model with the mud and locally available materials like engineers. They have shown the points of existing narrow canal in this plot, which were silted out. But this narrow canal is attached with the big canal, which was used for irrigation. And they also demanded that on the other side of their plot, there should be a narrow canal. As fortunately, during that time, another big canal was digging out. They raised their voice that this narrow canal through their cultivation land, the new canal, when it will be excavated, they want to be sure that it will be sloping down to the big new canal, so that they can drain out the excess water during the monsoon, and if they have unexpected rain due to climate change. And they have also formed a cooperative, and they would make savings like other groups of Nishtha. They have planned to hire some pump set so that immediately they can drain out the excess water from their lands in case of heavy rainfall, in order to save their farming during the climate change. You are thinking that it is so easy job, just digging out 2 narrow canal and attach the narrow canal with the big canal, so that they can irrigate their land and drain out the excess water. No, it is not so easy. Most of the farmers of this area are the small and marginal farmers. They were not ready to donate a little part of their land for this canal. And some of the landowners, they are rich and living in the city. They don't have any interest in cultivation, and they were dead against of this plan, and they didn't agree to give a small plot of land for this canal. And their plan also needs lots of money. Then they mobilized all stakeholders, farmers, sharecroppers, panchayats, and the local officials. Somehow their concerted efforts reached to the state level administration, the higher officials. You have seen the picture of the meeting. The higher officials, state level officers, they had to come and organize a big meeting to discuss at length on this issue. They accepted and recognized the planning. They declared money is not problem. Execution of the plan has already been started. This is a marvelous achievement for these women. But I want to share one thing with you all, that this is not a perennial problem for this area only. There are so many farmers in our district and other district of our state. They are suffering from the same problem. If you replicate this model in those areas also, hundreds and hundreds farmers will be benefited. This plan was made by the women, only by these women, the grassroots women who are illiterate, ignorant person. Next slide, please. They can, as they think that sea, water bodies, plants, all are living beings as the women are. To them, nature signifies love, care, and protection, and women have all the qualities. Next slide, please. But this we, the rural women, that who live in remotest area, they know about their problem very well. What is the problem, what they need, how they need, when they need, but nobody cares. But my question is, how many days they will be passive recipient only? But I am not ignoring that many times we are not invited so many meetings. But but have you ever thought, why at all should we attend? Are you aware why we never speak in these meetings? Because you have not taught us your language, or deliberately you want us so that we keep quiet. We are not feeling comfortable, rather we feel insulted. So why should we going to attend this meeting, destroying our time? Rather, we can fight with tiger and crocodiles and catch fish to feed our children, to save our family. So we have an earnest request to you all. Instead of sliding us as stupid, illiterate non-entities, why don't you learn to work hand in hand with us? If you can come down from your altar, you will get the chance to instill life into your knowledge and wisdom. Your knowledge earned through years of study and research needs to be enriched with the generation of experience of our mothers and sisters. In order to arrive at a tangible and sustainable solution to the problem created by the climate change, we request you all to start doing it now, please. It is never too late. With our sincerity and honesty, we can still save the world from the impending doom, so that we can leave behind a better world for our next generation. Next slide, please. Thank you for your patience.
Well, I think, Mina, really inspiring. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation that we all enjoyed. I've seen all the messages coming through on the chat room, and it is really, I even get goosebumps in terms of the way how you presented and the work that you have done. So thank you very much. Just for our audience from all over the world, we would like to say this whole proceedings are being recorded and it will be posted on the YouTube of the website of the Women for Water. So it will be after this webinar, it will be available to everyone. And there were also people to ask your presentation, Mina, and I'm sure you are willing to also share that presentation to them. So thank you very much. We are now going, and you are well on time. Thank you very much for keeping up with the time. And I'm now going to ask our expert discussant, Dr. Anjal Prakash. Now, just to give a little bit of background, Dr. Anjal Prakash is a research director and adjunct associate professor in the Bharti Institute of Public Policy at the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, India. And before joining, of course, the Indian School of Business, he was associate professor in the Department of Regional Water Studies at the Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, India. And he published numerous books. I'm just going to mention one or two, like The Dark Zone, Groundwater Irrigation, Politics and Social Power in North Gujarat, even case studies from South Asia. But in terms of his whole involvement and books that he has published through the Oxford University Press, he's a graduate of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, India, and the Wageningen University and Research, the Netherlands. He has worked in the area of water and climate change for over 2 decades, focusing on policy research, advocacy, capacity building, knowledge management, networking, and implementation of large-scale and multi-country development projects in South Africa. Please, we are listening to you, Anjal.
Thanks so much, Felix. That was a wonderful introduction, and I'm very humbly just to say that this has been a humbling experience for me to listen to Mina. Very interesting case study, and first of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the people around the world, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm here to just give a couple of pointers from what Mina's case study is telling us, and trying to extrapolate this to a kind of a wider issues of involving women and climate change issues. I'm at the moment, in fact, this is very timely for me because I'm part of the IPCC group as a lead author, and I'm coordinating one of the coordinators of Gender Cross-Chapter Box, which actually integrates gender issues across the different chapters in which IPCC is producing this report, which is going to be available very soon, about 2022. And then some of the issues that Mina has brought in has relevance for that one, and try to locate that. One is that before this IPCC report, the present assessment which is going on, there are 3 assessment reports which has come in the form of a special report, which looked at 3 special issues. One is the issue of global warming and how do we keep the Earth temperature to about 1.5 degree. Second is the focus on issues of oceans and the impact of climate change on oceans and cryosphere, these 2 interdependent sectors. And third was the focus on the land. And all these three reports, which took about 5 years, and hundreds of researchers across the globe, climate researchers and scientists across the globe were involved in these three reports. One thing which was very common in all three reports, that the climate is the climate is changing very rapidly, very fast, and it's impacting different sectors in a very, very different variety of different ways. But and second part is the human interaction part of it. The impact of this climate change is disproportionately on the poor men and women, and especially a lot on the women. And that is something that, if you look at land resources, you look at the ocean warming up and its impact on the fishing communities, or in the high mountain areas where women work, in those areas as agricultural farmers, or you have the heat wave which is impacting. So all these issues had brought in the central concern that women are disproportionately impacted by the climate change. Now, just trying to relate these issues with the presentation that Meena has brought in. In fact, the Meena's presentation is on the solution space, that what do we do to engage. One is that these women, in fact, one of the world's poorest women who are impacted by climate change, had not contributed a single bit to the changing climate. They are always in the receiving end, because their lifestyle, if you look at the lifestyle of these poor people, they are all carbon negative lifestyle. They are working on recycling issues. They care a lot about environment. So this issue of them not contributing anything to the process of climate change, but has been a receiving end. And my work has been in West Bengal and in rural Bangladesh, where I've worked very closely with rural women, especially these women of these communities, and I can vouch for some of the issues which has come up. Now, before I move to couple of 2 or 3 points that I would like to focus on, one issue which I found myself very important is when you engage women in the process of development, especially when in the development programs and on programs of climate change. What I find always that women are so very full of their work, in a sense that their schedule is totally full. How do we make out time? And that brings on to the whole issue of what we call the time poverty for women. Now, time poverty is understood as a shortage of time available to devote for purely personal requirements, including leisure and some relation activities that women have. But this is something that has been on a very scarce resource for them, because of the increasing stress that the environment has been bringing in through climate change process, increasing stress in their economic activities, as Meena was also pointing out about the climate change impacting agriculture, and that agriculture issues are bringing in economic hardship for women. So women have to do much more stressful jobs, and then that is the impact of this has been on them. Now, just to give you some statistics, especially coming from India, this is statistic coming from the Organization of Economic Cooperation Development, OECD, that has done a study which showed us that on an average in India, women work 6 hours per day on domestic work. This is, mind you, this is 5.77 times more than men, and at least 40% of more, this is more than the women in South Africa and China. So you can imagine women in India have been so overworked with their time involvement and the contribution to the domestic work that they do. But in the return, what happens to them is that they have been facing extremely constraints on their time. I know that some of them, this is an average figure of 6 hours, an average figure. But if you and that includes 400-500 million of middle class, which is rising in India, and also survives on care economy. That means the poorer women support the middle class women, so that middle class women go out and work, and that is that's part of it. So in that sense, poorer women in the urban areas take care of their own household, plus take care of their employers' household, and their work time increases in that sense. So first of these issues are of how do we bring in more time for women so that they have more leisure time, one, and also what is that the portion of the time actually goes into policy making process in terms of their political participation, which actually helps them in improving their own case. And that's the part which is very important according to me. Some of the recent reports which is National Sample Survey report, which shows about 92% of women spend most of their time on domestic duties. Among those who spent most of the time on domestic duties, about 60% in rural areas and 64% in urban areas. They did because the reason that there was no other member in their household to carry domestic duties. And the rest of the 8% do it because of their own preference. So the very small proportion of people, women, they do it because of their own preferences, but large portion of women, because of the lack of institutional facilities, for childcare or for other things, it is very difficult for women to have a full-time paid job, which actually brings in economic resources and also uplift themselves in terms of the self-worth that they have. And that is the whole issue that we come. Now, let me, because of the positive time, I'll come to 3 points, which could be on the solution space. We're looking at women, gender issues with women, and water issues, and on to top the climate change, which is coming as an external process which stresses these relationships already. So one is that at the moment, what we're doing now as part of IPCC, we were trying to look into how gender issues are, especially the adaptation options across the world. And we looked at about 600-700 papers, published paper, to understand the relationship between the adaptation options, how gender sensitive they are, and in relation to the Sustainable Development Goal. What we found, this is a very initial studies, and I'll not like to reveal this because this has to go through a pre-approved process. But one thing that I can reveal at this point of time is that most of the adaptation options that is carried out as a good adaptation options are actually very gender insensitive. They accentuate gender relationship in the favor of men, and are not helping women as much as we wish them to. And that's very important finding that we are trying to put together, and we are now trying to do the assessment to show how difficult it is, the adaptation options, and how important it is for the policy makers to make gender sensitive adaptation options, which works in the favor of women. And Meena's case actually brings in that point of how you can actually make a adaptation option. Here, in this case, the rejuvenation of a pond or a canal system makes it gender sensitive when you're involving women in the process of planning, execution, and the benefits that derives from this one. So that's the point that I was trying to win. Let me just focus on 3 points, and I'll close my discussion here, my talk here. One is that what we found is that there were very less in data on which was disaggregated by sex. So when the gender relation changes over time, you're not able to track how this goes over a period of time, and in what condition the gender relations becomes positive relationships between men and women. And that's something and second part of it is also intersectionalities issues, how this interlinkages with climate change. So you're not able to decipher the information because you lack disaggregation of data by sex. And that is something that I would like to put. And because you do not have this information, you're not able to pinpoint on the larger changes process which is taking place, which is in the favor of women or against women's work or for favoring some other class of people. That is very difficult to decipher. So what we do is that we rely on small case studies, and that is very sporadic. So it doesn't give you an overall picture. So that's point number one of having gender disaggregated data, which will give us pointers for policy makers at different levels, be it local level, be it a national level or international level, that will try and influence gender sensitive policy. That's number one. I would actually call it gender transformative policies, because that's the part that we are working on. Second is that we need to also have the program that not only strengthens women's capacity to implement certain program, but also giving them independent income, which goes directly in their account. And that is something what is the concept of, and here the issue of domestic violence, which was raised by Meena, I find it's the patriarchy and the patriarchal structure that is there, which actually works against, works in a in a process, it actually accentuates domestic violence. And there are very stringent laws in India, but the social taboos is as much. And to stick with the marriages, the pressure on women to stick into a marriage, even if it is a violent marriage, is very high, so that they don't report this to the police stations and all that. So this is something that probably is something that we need to really critically think about. I would actually propose the concept which is there in India for a long time. We call it Sridhan. Sridhan is women's wealth. That means women's independent income that goes to her own account, and she has fully right over this one. It's a concept at this moment. There are many places that we have done it. In a sense, we have it in the middle class women, but lower class and lower caste women, it is very difficult to establish. But we try and pose this as one of the solution space. Third one, which this is very close to my heart, is what we call women's political participation. Unless women participate politically in the process of representation, their own representation, and in the local bodies, be it panchayat, with the lowest level of economic political representation, or in the other spheres of political life, they will be very difficult for them to represent themselves. So these are 3 points I would like to focus on, and I will like to close my talk at this moment. I'll be happy to take any questions further. Thank you so much, Meena, for giving us a wonderful case study, which actually links with the point that I was trying to make also. Thank you so much.
Dr. Prakash, thank you very much for a thorough expert discussion on the presentation of Meena. I'm sure Meena also appreciate those valuable comments. We now have the opportunity for our audience. Yes, please, Meena, would you like to say something?
Yes, I want to say something that, yes, we know the landowner, all the landowners are the men, but we are fighting against them. We are organizing women so that they can demand, they can enjoy equal rights and equal opportunity. Not only that, we are also organizing men also. We are trying to make them gender sensitive. They are helping us also. And we are trying to gender sensitize the higher officials who walk through the corridor of power. So our efforts not only to empower only the women, to create a strong public opinion in favor of women, so that everybody can join, everybody can help, everybody can be sensitized. But one thing I can say, we strongly believe at Nishtha that in this critical time of ecological, environmental, economic, and social crisis, it is necessary to honor the motherly humanitarian approach of women that would bridle the speed of approaching the doomsdays. And women are very much sincere, and women love nature. Women try heart and soul to protect the nature. They don't destroy anything like the men. But I am not talking about all the male. There are so many nice male like you and other people. But most of the male in rural area, if you live with us for a few days, you can see most of the male take this torture and exploitation and deprivation from resources for these women. It is quite natural to them.
Thank you, Meena.
We have to take the women so that they can give leadership. Otherwise, there will be no peace in this world.
Absolutely.
Women can bring the peace.
Thank you, Meena, very much for that comment. Before we go to the question and answers, I'm going to introduce Ileana, our young water professional, for her comments. And just to give you a brief indication of Ileana, Ileana Harrigan earned a master's in environmental technology with a specialization in global environmental change and policy at Imperial College London. And very interesting, excellent thesis that she had, and that is entitled Gender Environment Nexus, the case of irrigation, gender and development. Examined the gender barriers to irrigation in rural India and the potential effects of their removal, particularly in relation to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. She previously comes from an international development background and spent a year working as a medical coordinator in a school in Quito, Ecuador. Ilana has a BA in Geography and International Development from the University of Sussex and a Master of Science in International Development and Humanitarian Emergencies from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Ileana, thank you very much. We look forward to listen to you.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool, so hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're listening from. Thanks, Felix, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to the previous speakers for their extremely interesting insights and perspectives. I'm Eliana Harrigan, and I'm representing the young water professionals. And I'm here to speak about the future of women, water and climate change in West Bengal. Next slide, please. So, reflections on what's been said so far. There has been a great deal of progress that has been made to boost the gender environment nexus. And you can see from the rise of international treaties, such as the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals, that there is an increasing awareness of the power of combining the environment and women. And that does fill me with hope, especially seeing as the planetary system is so interconnected that if you do something in India, that might have positive effects elsewhere in the world. You know, that to me is really exciting. But unfortunately, there is still a lot to be done. There's a lot of work left to do in order to combat both climate change and patriarchal norms. And the situation would drastically worsen if we continue on our current trajectory, if we carry on business as usual. So how do we break out of this? Next slide, please. Women as environmental decision makers. Women should be environmental decision makers. You know, that's it, as our previous panelists have mentioned. Women consist of 70% of the world's poor and are highly vulnerable to environmental shocks as a result of this. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by climate change. And this could be through daily activities. So for instance, a girl may have to walk further to collect water as a result of water scarcity and therefore miss out on her education. Or there are more extreme examples, such as the disproportionately high female death rate during natural disasters, which are increasing in both frequency and intensity as a result of climate change. So, for instance, during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, 4 times as many women died as men. And there were many reasons for this, but one of the reasons is that women couldn't swim as well, or just women couldn't swim at all. Why is this? Additionally, women tend to be shock absorbers during times of crisis, whereby, for instance, if there's a limited amount of food, they will give their food to their children and their husband. They will make that sacrifice for their family, but then obviously they immediately suffer. Another thing that should be mentioned is that the amount of conflicts that occur because of climate change will also rise, and armed conflicts disproportionately affect women and girls. So when it's an armed conflict based on climate change, you know, where does that leave women? They need a voice in decision making. How can you genuinely create holistic climate change policy without involving the most affected? I don't think you can, to be honest. Then more generally, more generally, women have different knowledges and expertise regarding the environment to men as a result of gendered roles and responsibilities. So as mentioned, women go to collect firewood, they go to collect water, they grow food for cooking. Women spend a lot of time outside, especially in developing countries. And if you are exposed that much to something, then you naturally learn about it. So women have a lot of knowledge of environmental and ecological processes that is not being incorporated in environmental policy. So consequently, climate change can only be combated by involving women in decision-making at all levels, local, national, and global, and from the very beginning of the projects until the end. It's not suddenly halfway through a project, people are like, should we ask a woman about this? No, from the beginning until the very end. Environmental policy is currently being deprived of the specific expertise and perspectives women have regarding ecological processes. And from an economic perspective, this can lead to a huge waste of resources. How can you attempt to fix an issue when you do not speak to those with direct exposure to an issue? With this, there is a huge potential for a misallocation of money. But it should be mentioned here that it's important to incorporate all women and include intersectionality into gender inclusivity. So by that I mean, the struggles of higher caste women will be different from the struggles of lower caste women, but both of these struggles are equally valid and both should be incorporated into environmental decision-making. Women should not be an umbrella term, it should be all groups of women. And mentioning this, tokenism should be avoided. Superficial representation is not the same as genuine participation. So the voices mustn't only be there physically, but they should be heard. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. Sorry, go back one. Thank you, sorry. So here is a figure to kind of highlight what I'm saying. It's the heads of national environment sectors by sex. It's from 2015, so maybe the numbers have changed a little bit, but as you can see, there is quite obviously a huge power imbalance in environmental decision-making. And you know, what does this mean for water scarcity? What does this mean for climate change? If the figure were a little more evenly distributed, what world would we be living in? Next slide, please. So we're speaking about the future. Let's be hopeful. We hear a lot of doom and gloom in the news, particularly now in the current situation that we find ourselves in. So let's think, if women were more involved in environmental decision-making, how could this benefit everyone? And as a result of the positive multiplier effects of increased gender equality, strengthening the role of women in environmental decision-making would lead to the overall realization of Sustainable Development Goals. And friendly reminder, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, should be reached by 2030. So that only leaves us 9 years and 2 months to hit those targets. So now we're looking for efficiency, right? So let's investigate this a little further. Women tend to be more nurturing of the environment around them. So if there were greater gender inclusivity in water-based decision-making, there would be greater conservation of water, both in terms of quantity and quality, because more water would be preserved generally, but lower amounts of chemicals such as pesticides and fertilizers are used by women. And that would lead to greater human and environmental health. Additionally, if women's voices are heard and environmental needs are addressed, then climate change may become less gendered. And that ties into the idea of climate justice and climate power imbalances. Socially, women tend to spend a greater proportion of their income on household well-being than men. So they'll spend more on nutritious food, they'll spend more on education, they'll spend more on healthcare, and aspects of well-being are mutually reinforcing. So if one increases, the others follow. Additionally, female empowerment tends to have intergenerational effects. So it's not only her children that are benefiting, but it's her children's children and her children's children. So if you invest in women, you're not only investing in that individual, you're investing in the future. You're investing in the future of society and in the future of the planet. Furthermore, and I'm sure one that we all agree with, social patriarchal norms will be dismantled. And that to me is great. If we give women positions of power, positions of authority, women will start to be viewed as active agents. And this will greatly change opinions and traditional views that, you know, people may have, but they may be tensions as a result of this. And that's why it's important to really eradicate tokenism. We want the women to be heard. We don't just want them there. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, sorry, back one. Thanks. So politically, what would be the effects? If there are more voices to be heard, there are more eyes to see what's going on. And those who have control over a resource tend to have greater access over it. You know, you control it and you want it, so you're going to get it. But by involving different groups, such as women, there could be lower levels of corruption in terms of environmental resource allocation. And then that will increase transparency and accountability in environmental projects. Thinking long term, other departments may be inspired to boost their gender inclusivity if they see the environmental sector doing so. So, you know, the energy sector might get involved, the transport sector might get involved. There will be many knock-on effects to this. Economically, as mentioned by one of our panelists, if women are increasingly giving space in the productive sphere rather than purely the domestic sphere, their incomes will increase and hence lower levels of invisible labour. And that will greatly help the well-being of the household, as mentioned. But there would be greater investment into the local community because, for instance, women may go to the hairdressers, which they hadn't been able to before. So that will lead an income stream to the local community and eventually make it thrive. Finally, as I've mentioned, there are many knock-on effects, there are many feedback loops that go on in the planetary system. And there are a lot of things that we don't know. So if we boost gender inclusivity in environmental decision-making, what does that mean for the rest of the world? What does that mean for ocean health if we improve female, what does it mean for ocean health if we improve female representation in environmental decision-making? There are many unprecedented benefits which we may see. Next slide, please. So, conclusions. A lot of amazing work has been done and is being done. And I would just, in this moment, like to send out a cosmic wave of gratitude to everyone who is helping out in times that may seem difficult. So yeah, lots of amazing work, lots of great work is being done. But, you know, there's always still a bit more to be done. Women are still excluded from environmental decision-making, and this should be stopped as soon as possible. Women should be included. You know, climate change is gendered, and not involving women in political decision-making is leaving huge gaps in policy which are entirely avoidable, leading to a huge waste of resources. As gender equality and water accessibility are both critical to societal progression, boosting the gender environment nexus will not only work to combat climate change, but would also help to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which will ultimately lead to a more peaceful, more sustainable society, economy, and environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eliana.
Thank you.
Well presented from the chat room. You could see the messages coming through of appreciation in terms of what you presented and in terms of your really insight in what is happening in that region. So thank you very much for that. We will now have a question and answer session, and we have already received 6 questions, and I will sort of ask the panelists if they could reply shortly in terms of those questions. First one is Susan Murphy, who asked, and most probably that is for Mina. So Mina, she asked, did it take a long time to get a change to present your ideas? How would you react on that?
I am not understanding the question properly. Could you please repeat it?
Yeah, in terms of all the initiatives that you take to get recognized in terms of your voice within what you are doing, the question is, did it take a long time to get that change to present your ideas?
Yes, it has taken a long time, because this case study, if this question is related, this case study, so the local authority, the local administration confessed that they tried many times that, but could not. It is very complicated, and people generally in West Bengal, in our state, people have small plot of land, not like in Punjab, Haryana, but in for this reason, these people do not want to donate the land. So we took our women's group members, especially the leaders, they took long time to convince the people and made them convinced to donate the land so that they can dig out the canal. But now they are successful. I want to share one thing. If you give us the decision-making power, if you give us the position of leader, I know we don't have enough education. We don't have enough, any certificate of university, but we can do. We can do. And if we do, it will be a peaceful, less conflict. There will be less conflict. Everybody will be happy. I am agree with Ileana that when we work for all. We have humanity. Women means humanity. And when the men work, they only think about the certain level of work, and they concentrate only on their plan. They don't think about the humanity or other things. So it takes time. It will take long time, because patriarchy, it is due to patriarchy, and due to patriarchy, our social norms and systems are very conservative and very complicated. To win the overcome this problem, it is really time consuming. But we have to invest our time, energy, and education and experience to stop this patriarchy.
Yeah, thank you, Mina. A question that linked to that is from Saratna Narayanan. And she asked, Mina, how did you get the men to listen to the women? I think you alluded to that, but maybe a short answer to that as well?
Yes. When women started raising their voice, that time at the beginning, the men didn't agree with women. They completely frustrated, and they opined that no, It is useless. We want to go to the city and earn work for 8 hours and whatever little amount, whatever meager amount, you will have to manage your family. But slowly, when the leaders try to sensitize them, some of the farmers, they trying to understand the outcome of the planning. Then we engage these strong farmers and sharecroppers to sensitize the other farmers and other sharecroppers. And not only that, there are so many politics and few political leaders, they were against us. Few political leaders of ruling party, they were very helping, used to help us very much. By this way, we can say each day we created new plan to convince the men. Convince the men is a tough work, but we are successful. We have big groups of men, change maker groups. We call it change makers group. They are helping the women groups, and with the help of them, we are successful.
Thank you, Mina. Susan Murphy also asked over what period of time was this plan developed? Was it a year, maybe weeks or months? Just indication.
About 4 years.
4 years, okay.
Yes.
So it is quite a long time, showing the endurance and the commitment by the women to really convince people to accept also their plan. Kusum Atyukorala said, post-COVID-19, how and where will we be able to get funds for essential capacity building programs on climate adaptation for women farmers and irrigators? And most probably that is not the answer that you might be able to answer, but any ideas, Mina?
Yes. And during the COVID-19, I am so proud to express my experience. You can't imagine the leaders of our girls group, 14 years old, 15 years old girls, and the boys group. We have also Kishore Bahini. Kishore means adolescent boys. Bahini means team. And these boys and girls group leaders, they take the role of frontline service providers. They fought against all these difficulties. They, with a cycle, their weapon, they had only one weapon. Till now, they are fighting with a cycle. They are roaming here and there. They are visiting every corner of the villages. They are motivating the rich people to donate their rice and vegetables so that they can distribute the family. And they also worked hard till now. They are working hard to shape their environment. They are preparing a big list and depositing to the local government, the panchayat. Panchayat has got huge money under MGNREGA, and they are requesting them, you have to implement this planning so that we have clean water. We can plant the plantation so that groundwater can be recharged, and you have to dig out the big canals, reconstruct the big canals so that we can use the canal water for irrigation, and people will not use underground water for the irrigation. They have prepared many plans, and the women, the leaders of the women, they are also preparing plans and till now work is going on. They are depositing it to the authority, and already 2 canal they have reconstructed so that farmers can use the water, as we are very much afraid that coming days will be more dreadful. We are living in a maze, and you can imagine the condition is so dreadful, so critical. We don't have any income, any food, nothing. We are everybody is depending only on the ration provided by the government and NGOs like Nishtha.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mina. And I've got a question here for Ileana, where Sarah Wilkin said, great presentation, Ileana. Very true. How can you create policies without involving the people most affected? And what steps do we need to take to do this? And how can we increase access to investment and finance? Just unmute yourself.
Yeah,
No, that is to Ileana.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So what steps do we need to take? I think, as I said earlier, there will be some tensions. If you're suddenly like, women are in power now, I'm sure a few people will think, I don't know, there's deeply ingrained patriarchal views in society. So I think it's important to kind of create like a transition in order to alleviate any potential trade-offs. I already know that in India, the 15th of October is like the National Women's Farmer Day or something.
Okay.
So, really boosting that, increasing awareness that women are legitimate water users and not just domestic water users, they're also agricultural water users. So that could be through like running workshops, running advertising, and just really getting those conversations started. And then for how can we increase access to investment and finance, that's a bit tricky, because in India a lot of investment is based on land ownership, and women disproportionately don't own land. So for this reason, I think it's important to introduce like micro finance schemes to just give women that economic agency to be able to make those decisions. So I would say take it like a step at a time, but make sure that each step is like a strong, bold step that, every time we're creating new conversations and new political spaces.
Thank you very much, Ileana. A last question. We received a number of questions, but unfortunately time is catching up on us. And that goes to Anjal, where Luz Rooney asked, is there a partnership with the Indian School of Business and the women in the village to mentor them and help them better address these issues? Now, Anjal, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to ask it because you studied or you work there. But if you could keep your answer short, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Felix. There's no partnership at the moment, but I've been part of Women for Water Partnership earlier, and other gender network as well. And I'll be reaching out to Meena Das if there's anything that we can do together. So thank you so much for this question.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us to the end of our webinar, the third one of a series of 8. And just to close off, and I think I would like to say that very inspiring words that Mina started with in a video, the way of a floating life and the power of women, and how climate change has made a huge adverse impact on their lives, and how they really take it and let their voices heard around the world, and how agriculture can be saved during various aspects, and how the world is waiting for the women to take charge. So thank you very much for our panelists. We really appreciate it. I believe it added value to our knowledge, understanding the role of women in agriculture. And thank you very much for the Marit and her team for organizing this webinar. And we look forward to engage with you in the next webinar that is in a couple of days. So with that, we appreciate. And as I've said, this will then be loaded on YouTube for you to access the presentations, everything that were presented this afternoon. So I wish you a very good evening, afternoon, and morning, and let us work together and as women, let us tackle the challenge of climate change and everything that goes with that. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you for this opportunity. Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.